Hey guys, this is how to beat large goblin camps. I will do a separate video on how to tackle the goblin city, but there are a number of goblin outposts which look a lot like this, generally in the vicinity of 1 to 2 support units, the caster and the overseer, and a large number, 20 to 30 goblins basically, of what you're going to be fighting. I found goblins to be one of the most annoying units to deal with in this game for a very long time, and then eventually got put onto the idea of archers countering goblins. It seems absolutely absurd because goblins are both full of ranginess themselves and all have anticipation, which makes them very tough shots to be getting, very tough targets to hit with archers. But this has been by far the way that is both the safest for me to fight them and results in the least number of wounds and is the least frustrating way to fight goblins. So let's talk about what the loadout I like to bring. I bring frontliners. It doesn't really matter what type of frontliner. Here, megas are fine, two-handers are fine, duelists are fine. It doesn't make any difference. And I give them a one-handed weapon and a kite shield. When you're setting up your front line, be aware that goblins pick the targets they're going to be attacking based on range defense. So if you have one brother who has 25 melee defense, let's say you have a wild man who has a negative range defense modifier, if they will just constantly shoot that one guy again and again and again. And because there's so many of them and their initiative is much higher than your initiative, they often will do that all in a row at the beginning of a turn. And if you're rooted, you have a reduction to defense. And if you're netted, you have a reduction in defense. And sometimes that can just burst people down, even in full armor, from nowhere. So when you build your front line, try to be cognizant of the range defense of that front line and make sure that you are not putting one person vastly below the other people in terms of range defense. You want them very similar so the goblins spread damage. If you do have that one brother who has a issue with that, or they're focusing one brother, feel free to shield wall him each turn. General strategy for this, break the roots if you can, particularly on the front line because of the melee defense reduction. Conserve your stamina a little bit, so rotate root breaks plus recovers on your team. If someone is getting focus fired a lot, if they're like nimble, for example, the goblins will focus them a lot. Alternate shield walls and indomitables depending on what's going to do more for you in that round. And allow your archers to pick them off. I pick off the easiest target is a generally rule of thumb for me. So closer ones are generally easier. The spearmen who don't have shields are generally easier. The throwers who come in without shields are generally easier. Avoid trying to shoot the overseer too much. The overseer does put out ridiculous piercing damage with that stupid crossbow, but the overseer has a fair number of hits from bows in a way that the other characters don't. If you get a chance to shoot the shaman is a high value target. The root is really annoying for your team, very stamina intensive, and prevents you from relocating, and he is actually not very tanky. He's very easy to kill. So a lot of the times I'm just going to be shooting whichever goblin's easiest, and then if I can, the shaman. I don't move my front line forward very often. Sometimes if there's a very easy kill, I will move them up to try to take that kill, then back up again. But what I'm trying to avoid is moving a brother forward and ending his turn, and then the goblins deciding early in the turn order to throw a net on him, which massively reduces his defenses, and then using weapons that ignore his armor, like puncture attacks, for example. All the goblins carry, goblin swords have a puncture mode on them, and they all carry something that is going to do direct damage to your health, which is a really big deal. If you insist on moving up the battlefield against goblins early on in the fight, they will do that. They will isolate one of your brothers sooner or later with a net plus or a root or both, and then puncture him full of holes through his armor, even at very high HP, and you will end up with a number, at the very best scenario, you'll end up with a number of wounds. In the worst case scenario, you'll end up losing a brother out of nowhere who really didn't need to die here. So for me, this is just, this is a test of how many archers. This is why in my campaigns, I like to run 4 dedicated archers and 2 hybrids. And I like them as bow hybrids so that I can reach across the battlefield to take on goblins in reasonable numbers. The nice thing about this type of fight when you do it this way is that you can face numerous back-to-back goblin fights. So if you go into a goblin area where there's a ton of goblin camps, you can take them all almost back-to-back-to-back with almost no risk associated for it for you, and pretty high rewards. Although goblin loot is garbage, like the goblin items themselves are pretty bad, they do have a decent chance of famed item spawning, and clearing a bunch of goblin camps in a row almost always nets a couple famed items, which is great. All right, other things to consider. I do like to break people free of roots when I have the extra action points to do it. Is it a defense reduction? And you can run into issues sometimes where the goblins score a couple lucky hits, like a headshot or 2, or maybe the overseer connects with that crossbow, and you're in a position where one of your brothers is going to die if he is rooted. In a scenario like that, it didn't happen in this particular fight. We were pretty well armored for this fight. This is pretty late game for us. We actually have anti-piercing armor on or anti-arrow armor on our archers as well. You can just move them back. Because your line is stationary here and the goblins are basically shooting at you and eventually approaching a little bit, one of the things you can do, let's say this guy with the Emperor helm had been like taking a bunch of damage and he was now low enough that I'm worried about him. Just have the other guys around him break him free of the root and then have him just run backwards on the screen. Early game, I have a couple of goblin fights recently in the campaign I'm playing where I'm taking them fairly early. My archers are only like level 6 or level 7, and my front line is in pretty weak armor, where I'm taking more damage. At the end of the fight, I'll often have 2 or 3 or even 3 or 4 brothers standing in the back here. They'll be at like 20%, 30% HP. Their armor might be shot full of holes. It might be an archer who got headshot, and he's standing in the back here, and the rest of my line is just slowly brawling it out with them, range fire for that. And you can just back them up. And they're going to be safe as long as they can get away. So the root is one of the reasons to continually break the root is so that not all your guys are rooted, so you can move them away. It also gives your front line something to do each turn since they're not doing a lot. A couple other considerations to think about are the whether or not to use aim shot versus quick shot. And I do switch a lot on this back and forth in these fights depending on what I'm looking for. Again, I'm looking for the high value hits. I want to... The way you can lose this fight is if in the early game, when the early part of this fight, when you're walking into this and there's 25 goblins, if you don't kill them quick enough, you will eventually get overrun. So if the first like 2 rounds are miss from you, no goblins die, and all of their range damage gets brought to bear on you each round, it can start going poorly. So I want kills early, and I'm forcing those kills. And sometimes it's for morale. You can break goblin morale, but the overseer makes morale not that exciting. Although shooting targets with low morale gives you better accuracy because they lose part of their range defense from that. So I will sometimes alternate that. Some of it's stam related, some of it's arrow related. So if you're running low on arrows, of course, use aim shot. If you're running low on stamina, so you can't quick shot twice, sometimes aim shot is better just to get those hits in. Sometimes it's about making sure I guarantee a kill or 2 per round to reduce the total number of goblins. Sometimes it's a high priority target. Like if the shaman moves up, I really want to make sure it dies. There's a time to do that as well. Sometimes it's based on recover. You can quick shot plus recover in a turn, or you can double quick shot and then switch ammo in a turn with berserk. Of course, both those things with berserk, but is a time to be using aim shot. Remember, aim shot also gives you +1 range. So a lot of the times, for example, these 3 goblins might move forward and it will now leave the archers vulnerable in the back because they no longer have someone in the front. So we're no longer taking that accuracy reduction. It may be worth firing a couple aim shots into the squishy archers in the back just to get them off the field. Something else to consider for that. But this has been a really surprisingly good way to deal with archers that has resulted in way less wounds on my brothers. Excuse me, a way to deal with goblins that have resulted in way less wounds on my brothers than I was previously taking when I was attempting to move down the field versus goblins. And I've tried a lot of other solutions. I've tried quick hands with 2-handers. So I walk down the field with like a kite shield and then switch to a 2-handed weapon. I've tried adrenaline builds for this. I have tried just basically all melee moving up. I've tried lots of dogs. None of this stuff seems to be as efficient and as regular as a way to beat them as pure archers. This is one of the reasons why I almost always carry 6 kite shields in my inventory from the moment I can start doing that, is because kite shields have the +25 range defense bonus, which is super nice. I don't use kite shields in pretty much any other fight, but versus goblins, it is incredible. It's much better than the standard 15 of a round shield that you're likely to get. And this is another good fight where famed kite shields actually are worth something. In this particular clip, I think I have 3 famed kite shields, 2 of which were 35 range defense kite shields, which are absolutely fantastic versus goblins. Don't be afraid to roll on low percentages. This fight is just about like volume of fire. You want to bring as many archers as you can and be killing things just over time across the course of a fight. It's another pretty methodical fight. It takes a while. It's not super exciting, but is a fairly safe and consistent fight done right. All right, guys, hopefully this was helpful, and we'll see you soon. That's a really high chance of famed items. We should take it. All right, Cancer City, here we come. So we're not leveling. Jesus, all right. It's ballsy. All right, this fight. He's sad he wants to be shot by arrows because he's a drunkard. Maybe shot by arrows, it's okay. Where did my 2-handed flail go? Oh, no. All right, assign the goblin arrow, the goblin catchers. One for you, 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 one for you. No. Who is it that doesn't get one? Aren't you all super low melee defense? 35, 39. No, you have 9. It's not that bad. One for you. Okay. We not bring anybody? I want to bring Fatty Badger Pants, but I think he'll get drilled to death with arrows. Maybe we don't. Kijin at 88, 91 here. We bring one less archer. For leveling purposes. Perhaps, perhaps. Alright, I guess I should assign some weapons. Sword. Flail. Sword. Sword. You have a shit ton of stam, right? We have orc weapons in here? We do. Who has the most stam? You do. You can have that. Okay. We have weapons assigned. No one's less excited about this fight than me, but we're doing it. Oh, I should have brought the anti-ranged armor. I want more of those warlord camps. Those were sweet. Or some like late game undead pits would be fine too. Nice. Goblins give you famed items. I didn't realize goblins are the best famed item chances in the game. It looks like they probably are. You can do them the earliest because you prioritize archers so hard in the early game. So it looks like in the future runs we will be heavily attempting goblins early since there's so much famed item to be had. Oh, certainly. No, don't root me. It's unnecessary and rude. I think Noble Mail is excellent. If the campaign goes on long enough, I'd love Noble Mail on all my Nimble guys, I think. And we got some pretty leveled guys right now. We're taking this the slow route. This was initially going to be an accelerated run. We just didn't ever get the melee guys for Kraken. I feel like this guy's been fleeing for a very long time. Oh, did I remove the last guy we picked? No. Okay. Did he just recover and come back? I think he did. Why you don't shoot at the shamans, or not the shamans, the overseers. They're so fucking hard to hit, and they're so tanky against archers. You guys can leave whenever you want, goblins. Don't stay here on my accord. Just make sure you leave the famed items behind. Picking off their archers? No, I just take the... At this point, I take... Their archers don't really hurt this much when you're at this degree of armor. So I just pick the easiest shots. The goal is to kill them as quickly as possible. If I can, I'll pick that guy off because he's really annoying. And this guy's very dangerous, but he's very high... very high armor, too, compared to the other goblins. And I don't like shooting behind cover. I don't know if this is proven or not, but cover that is not a person seems much harder to hit behind to me. Ooh, got there, nice. They out? Boo. Well. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. We're going for it, chat. We're going for it. I want my shot. I want my club. Oh, I counted wrong. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Boo. We're not getting it. Oh, he rooted me like an idiot, like a scrub. Scrub goblin play. Oh, I guess we are getting our stick after all. Sweet. Give me fancy stick. It's now an upgrade when we fight Hexen. We get +1. +1 stamina fighting Hexen. Such an upgrade. Oh, we're not going to get it because we have to spam... Shit, we have to spam adrenaline again. I didn't do it. Never mind. There's no way we get him, so never mind. Never mind. Look at these famed items. Incredible. The value. Got a lot of berries, though, whatever the fuck that was. So...